What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Do me a favor, take a moment, hit the like button, subscribe button, criticism in the comments section. As always, joined by UFC middleweight Anthony Lionheart Smith after a very exciting UFC 197 start out with Andre Fili, who I picked to win. He had an issue really controlling distance. He struggled at times to defend from his back. He never really aggressively attacked Rodriguez when he was down. And, controlling that distance is what ended this fight on a highlight reel. And I mean, like when they show UFC previews in the future, a highlight reel roundhouse kick. It was set up beautifully. He placed it to where, obviously, Fili was trying to defend the other leg, clipped him right in the head, lights out. A great win for Rodriguez.
And the next fight was Robert Whitaker versus Rafael Natal. The fight, I did pick Whitaker to win the fight. I thought he would get the knockout. The fight didn't go anywhere near how I thought it was going to go. Natal was actually surprisingly able to really batter the leg of Whitaker the entire fight, and I really believe Whitaker was lucky to get out of there with the win. The fight was much closer contested than I thought it was going to be, but Whitaker was able to kind of stay in there and get the W. Speaking of surprising, we move this right to Anthony Pettis versus Edson Barboza. I picked Pettis. I thought that Pettis was going to be the more polished striker. I thought that he was going to kind of outclass Barboza a little bit, and he kind of made me eat my words. Barboza looked great. His timing was great. His distance was great. He really seemed to have Anthony Pettis' number tonight. And that marks 3 losses in a row for Anthony Pettis. He's really fallen very, very far from where he once was when he was the title holder. I really don't know where he goes from here, but Edson Barboza was great tonight.
One fighter that was out of this world, Demetrius Johnson. I actually said if Henry Cejudo could get him down into the ground, I felt like he could be Cejudo's fight. Cejudo did take him down, for what it's worth. Demetrius basically kicked him right off and then just went into a series of short distance strikes, elbows, knees, punches that ended Cejudo. I mean, it really was, from start to finish, Demetrius Johnson's fight. He was aggressive. He was distinctly precise in where he was placing his hits. And really, you look at the rest of the division, he walks through them. He really just showed, even, we'll talk about John Jones in a minute. To me, when you go back, you look at that fight against an Olympic wrestler, that's pound for pound greatest fighter on the planet right now when you talk about Demetrius Johnson.
Absolutely. Demetrius Johnson is on a different level than any other fighter that's ever graced any octagon anywhere. The way that he was able to defend several takedowns before he was actually taken down, he got right back up. The angles that he was able to throw those knees on that ultimately ended up hurting Cejudo and getting the finish were beautiful. He's so fast. He's so clean with his techniques. He's so smart. A lot of people, like you said, we're going to talk about John Jones, but a lot of people think that John Jones is the pound for pound best fighter that's ever graced the octagon, and I don't believe that. I think that Demetrius Johnson, given the fact that he's completely wiped out his entire division, and just capped it off one of the most dominating title defenses, maybe, definitely in his career, but maybe ever. He just walked right through him. He looks great. Demetrius, I don't really know what's next for Demetrius Johnson. I think at this point in time in his career, I think it's time to start looking at super fights.
As far as John Jones, he came out very methodical. He almost crawled to the center of the ring. He relied on a lot of low kicks. He relied a lot of spinning kicks to kind of establish that distance. I was really intrigued that, St. Preux did so much hand fighting earlier, but never really showed that urgency. Obviously, I think there was one point in the fight where we saw OSP is a really good athlete. You had mentioned a lot of people discredit him. This fight goes the round, but there was a point where Jones caught his leg, and OSP probably got 4 or 5 really good punches to the head and made Jones give his leg up. And you just don't see a lot of fighters that athletic. I expected a lot more of John Jones, especially when you've got a fighter coming in 3 weeks' notice. You're supposed to be pound for pound best on the planet. He looked like he was scared to pull the trigger the entire fight. I don't know whether I should be overly impressed with St. Preux or really disappointed in John Jones. But even Cormier said afterwards, he looked at that match and he thought he missed an opportunity because, to me, that looked like a very beatable John Jones tonight.
That absolutely was a very beautiful John Jones. And I don't know if that's because John Jones was rusty and came in, a little bit flat, or if OSP is just that good. I said it from the beginning. As soon as this fight was announced, and I said it on our preview, that OSP was going to put up a way better fight than everyone was going to give him credit for. I've known OSP since the Strikeforce days, and that guy was one of the most athletic people I've ever met. And I honestly don't think that was the best OSP that we could have seen. If you would have brought that if you would have brought OSP on a 12-week training camp to that John Jones, I believe that the outcome of that fight would have been different. I think that he didn't pull the trigger because he was maybe a little bit apprehensive about his gas tank, only coming off a 3-week notice. I believe that John Jones is a little bit apprehensive because he only had a 4-inch reach advantage. I've always said that John Jones technically isn't the best fighter in the UFC. John Jones is the longest and is very, very athletic, and he's a kickboxer that can wrestle. And that's as soon as John Jones meets someone who is technically just as good as him and can meet his physical attributes, he's going to have a lot of problems. And I think that's what happened tonight. Someone who was just as athletic, maybe not as quite technically as good as he is, but meets him as far as size-wise goes, it's comparable and just as athletic. And my hat's off to OSP. I think on 3 weeks' notice he really came and he showed his heart. And I think more than anything, his stock raised tremendously in this fight.
I couldn't agree more, and we agree a lot, but I don't know why that happens to be. One time we're going to have to disagree on something. I will say, to close this out, one of the best things I've seen John Jones do is refuse the belt afterwards. He knows that that's not his belt. He knows he has to go through DC to, I guess, earn it back to a degree. But from someone that a few weeks ago maybe wore the belt at a press conference when he shouldn't have, as you had said, for maybe the head games of it, I really was impressed the fact that he didn't take it. So love to know your guys' opinions on this. Appreciate you checking out this video. We'll be back in the week with more content.